Hey everybody, who doesn't love a good comparison video comparing modeling to real tube amps? Not that this hasn't been done to death already. So many folks do this, but so many people seem to enjoy it. And I really haven't had the chance to do one of these in a very, very long time, if ever. I think I did one a long time ago when I was using a very different amplifier and a very different modeling system. I recently acquired a Revv Amplification G20 lunchbox style head, and I gotta say, I'm really blown away by it. And I thought, how much fun would it be to see if I can dial a tone in on it that I really, really like, and then come over to the Helix with no real preconceived ideas about matching settings or anything, and pick one of the Revv channels that we have in the Helix, since I believe is a 2.8 software update, I don't know, somewhere around there. I believe 2.8, and then we got the purple channel and the 2.9, I think, anyways. So they all kind of run together after a while. But I thought, how much fun would it be to kind of see if I could dial something in. Obviously not exact. We're dealing with two different amplifiers. I believe the Revv models in the Helix are of the Revv Generator 120 amplifier, and this is the Revv G20. I think the Revv folks were trying to go in the same spirit of that amplifier, but kind of condense it into a lunchbox style head with a lot more, direct out features. Really easy to record and whatnot. Not sure if the Generator 120 has that, actually. I haven't tried one. Anyways, they're very different amplifiers, so I thought this would be a fun thing to do. I'll come up with a tone that I really like on the Revv G20, and then pick whichever channel or model on the Helix that I think I can sort of get in the ballpark. Now, my methodology for this was, along with what I just explained, was also to have the Revv G20, which is sitting over here off screen, going in through one of the loops of the Helix. And I'll explain that when we look at HX Edit in a second here. And I set it up so that I could just snapshot switch between the real Revv G20 and the setup of the Revv model that I have in the Helix. Now, I also decided to go through the same, let's call it IR. In this case, I chose a stock cab from the Helix. Now, before anybody says, oh, you should have gone with this IR, you should have gone with that IR, there's a million opinions about that. I also could have gone with the Torpedo remote software that is included with the Revv G20 that gives us all sorts of possibilities for IRs as well. But actually, I tried a couple third-party IRs, I tried the stock cabs, and I tried the Torpedo remote, and believe it or not, I really settled on one of my favorite stock cabs from the Helix. But the point here is that both signal chains, or both digital amp and real amp, are going to go through the same thing with no alterations and matched in volume, as any comparison has to be. Otherwise, we're not hearing any true difference between the two tones that were dialed in, right? We're hearing the difference between a different IR, a different speaker, different EQ settings, and whatnot. So, in this case here, we have the exact same chain for both. I level matched them with my loudness meters within 0.1 dB in the mixes and here in what you're going to hear when I play just alone solo. Okay, so here we are over in HX Edit, and I'll just show you quickly my setup that I was explaining to you. What I have here first is the Revv Gen Red model from our Helix with these settings you see here. If you notice, I have a send and return block. It's going into a cab. The send and return on snapshot 1 are just disengaged. They're not on, and I'll explain that in a second. But I am going into a 412 greenback 25 with a 121 ribbon, distance of 3 inches back, low cut of 80 hertz, high cut of 8 kilohertz. Just sounded good, what it came up with, and it's being applied to both, okay? Now you might say, what are the send and return for? Well, the send here is for sending the signal out of the Helix and into the front of the G20. Now you might say, why did I not just use a one loop and use the send and return block? Well, I used the send block alone so that I could set this to instrument output, okay? This is going into the guitar input or the instrument input of the Revv G20, which I have over here off screen. So it's important that that is set to instrument, whereas coming back into the Helix, I need it to be coming in at a line level because that's what's being sent out of the G20. So to do that in global settings, if we set the send one as instrument, then the return is also going to be instrument, and I wanted those separate. That's why I did the two as such, okay? I also set the return to mix to 100%, so it's not mixing in any direct signal. I have a little shelf EQ like I oftentimes put on Low gain, low frequency of 660 hertz. I think I bumped the mouse. I usually have that at 650 hertz, not the end of the world. Shaved everything below that down by 2 dB, boosted everything above 650 by 1 dB, and that just polished it up for the mix a little bit. And then here I always, like I say in many videos, I have a little bit of a touch of reverb, because when we're direct recording, whether from a real amp or a modeled amp, you know, there's no ambience, there's no room ambience. We want to give it a little more of a lifelike feel by adding a little bit of reverb. So I did just that. So that is the setup. I matched the volumes to within 0.1 dB with my loudness meters, because that's so important to make sure that we're hearing the same volume when comparing two different tones. So when I started playing around with the Revv Gen models, the purple or the red in the Helix, I actually found I was able to get the tone kind of closer to the G20 using the Revv Gen red model, okay? And like I said, I wasn't trying to match settings on these to see if they're the same, because they didn't model a G20, they modeled a Revv Generator 120. So I ended up with drive at 3.6, bass at 4, mid at 5, treble at 5, presence at 5, my channel volume at 8.8 just to get the levels matched up, master at 5, resonance at 0, aggression at 1, sag at 5, hum 0, ripple, bias, X all at 5. I didn't touch those deeper functions. Now over here on the Revv G20, we had these settings. We had the gain all the way up to about 3 o'clock, treble around 2 o'clock, mids cranked, bass at about 11 o'clock, volume again up around maybe 1 o'clock. The wide switch not engaged. I was on the high gain channel of the Revv G20 with the aggression on the red setting. Now keep in mind, all of the settings on the direct out going through the Torpedo remote software were switched off. So there was no reverb added from that. There was no cabinet simulation. There was no power amp simulation, all things you can do on the Torpedo remote, but I shut all that off. So all we're hearing is the tube sections of this amp feeding into the same signal chain that the Revv Gen Red is going to sound like. So what I've done is I've done a quick little performance. I threw together a backing track with Superior Drummer, Tune Track Superior Drummer, and Tune Track's Easy Bass. Using my new Godin Stadium Tele style guitar. I love this guitar, very nice, sounds amazing. It's just a short musical example to let you hear what these tones sound like in comparison to one another. So I did a run through of it, and then I reamped it through the Helix alone, setting Snapshot 1, Snapshot 2, when I hit it, as you see on the screen here, the amp shuts off and the effects send and return turns on. Nothing else changes, right? So Snapshot 1 is the Helix, Snapshot 2 is the Revv. So in the performance videos you're about to hear, it's labeled on the screen what you're hearing. First one's going to be the Helix, second one's going to be the Revv. I double tracked the guitars, panned them hard left and right in all of these. And the third time through this short musical example, the first half, and it'll be notated on the screen, is going to be the Helix, and then it's just going to seamlessly switch to the Revv, just so you can hear them really back to back and see what you think of the comparison between the two tones. Again, I'm not saying I matched the tones, or I actually was quite pleasantly surprised how close I could come to getting them well in the same ballpark. And I think it's a real testament to both Revv for making such an incredible sounding amp, as all of their amps are, but also a huge hats off and testament to the Line 6 folks with how they've modeled the Revv models in the Helix. These are really fabulous models. So yeah, so it's just kind of a fun thing and just trying to get these things close. So without further ado, let's listen to those, and then I'll come back and I'll give you some demos of some playing outside of the mix. All right, be back soon. All right, so here we are back. What did you guys think? Like I said, I was pretty happy with the comparison and the way that they turned out. They both sounded really good and quite close. I mean, there were little differences, but again, I guess I could have tried to tone match it perfectly, but that wasn't really my point here. Just sort of see how close I could get really quick without diving into any crazy EQ or tone matching type of things, right? Just using the basic controls on both. And I think it's, you know, both tones are completely usable and sound really great in and out of the mix. So let's take a look at what we do have here. So here is the sound of our tone of just our Helix, okay? Over to the Revv G20. Do a little bit of back and forth between the Helix and the G20. What do you guys think? Very close, obvious little subtle differences and whatnot. Like I said, I did that very quickly. I matched these up last night before I was heading to bed really fast. Probably spent about 5 minutes getting them. I probably could have got them even closer if I really tweaked a little more, but it was just kind of a fun thing. I had the idea last night. Why don't I throw together a video with that? Threw together the backing track and the performance this morning for what you heard, just so you guys could hear it. But again, hats off to the folks at Revv. This G20 is such a killer amplifier. What a great job. And it's so small that I can lift it with one hand, right? The direct out on it is amazing for live and for recording. MIDI controllable, you know, so many great features on that. And again, the Helix folks, man, oh man, they have knocked it out of the park again. As we know, we've had these models for a while, but these Revv models are absolutely killer, and they've really outdone themselves as far as modeling them, in my opinion. So that was a fun little thing. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I hope it was of some use to somebody. It was more just a fun little idea that I had to compare them because, like I said, we don't have enough comparisons between modeling and real amplifiers on the internet. Yeah, okay, sarcasm. Yes, we do have too many of those, so here's another one. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you so much for giving me your time and tuning in. Please like the video, share it if you don't mind, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit the little bell notification to get notified when I put new content out. I have some new and fun stuff coming up soon. And I just want to thank you guys for tuning in and for all the support. All right, thanks again, guys. I will be back soon. Ciao for now.